Hi, my name is Allison Roberts, and I'm here today on behalf of the Government of Alberta, the Ministry of Environment and Parks, to discuss how two specific grant programs administered under this ministry are investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience. Hello? Good. Okay, so today, just a quick agenda. I'm going to discuss a couple of recent disasters that have impacted Alberta over about the last decade. And then I'm going to talk about the Alberta Community Resilience Program, which is a structural mitigation program for flood and drought. And then I'll touch upon the Watershed Resiliency and Restoration Program, our sister non-structural program that works with ecosystem services. And then I'll just conclude with a couple of points about work that's occurring with our ministry in parallel. So I've included this slide for some geographic reference. Alberta is a landlocked province located in Western Canada. We are home to some diverse geography, so that includes our Rocky Mountains, prairies, desert badlands, and then a boreal forest in the north. So as such, we do face a diversity of hazards, and those include risk from debris floods from our steep mountain creeks, as well as riverine flooding due to both open water and ice jam, urban flooding, and the risks due to climate change. Do I stand somewhere else? So, in about the last decade, there have been a few major events in Alberta that have become increasingly costly. So starting in 2005, we saw some flooding after 3 successive storms generated record high water levels. At that time, 14 municipalities declared local states of emergency, and over $165 million was paid out. Thank you. And over $165 million was paid out through disaster recovery programs. At that time, 3 deaths were affiliated with the flood. In 2011, the Slave Lake wildfires impacted Alberta. It displaced 7,000 people, and the town of Slave Lake was evacuated with no casualties. Unfortunately, 1 helicopter pilot died while fighting the fire, and damages were in excess of $700 million. In 2013, Southern Alberta experienced extensive flooding. That occurred in June 2013, and damages are estimated at about $6 billion for both insured and uninsured losses. So this represented the first provincial declaration of emergency. 30 communities were impacted, 100,000 people evacuated, 14,000 homes experienced damage, 80 schools, 10 healthcare facilities, 1,000 kilometers of roads, and 3,000 businesses were impacted. 4 deaths have been attributed to this flood. So it might be of note that in Canada at that time, there was no residential overland flood insurance available to citizens. And part of the damages can be attributed to increased exposure of property in high hazard areas. And finally, a year ago, in 2016, Fort McMurray experienced a significant wildfire. About 90,000 people from the Fort McMurray area were evacuated. 2 young lives were lost during the evacuation, and the Insurance Bureau of Canada currently estimates that losses will probably reach about $9 billion, making this Canada's most expensive disaster. So over the last couple of years, Alberta has faced a number of increasingly costly disasters. So I'm going to focus on flood mitigation specifically for this presentation. And following 2013, Alberta took an approach to flood risk management that we've called respecting our rivers. And it's guided by 7 elements with the goal of creating some layers of resiliency, including watershed management, flood modeling and warning systems, risk management policies, water management and mitigation infrastructure, erosion control, local mitigation initiatives, and individual initiatives by homeowners. So following 2013, it became obvious that in order for local municipalities to undertake local flood mitigation measures, they would require financial support. And the Alberta Community Resilience Program was born, and it was announced in 2014. This is a capital grant program with $531 million available over the course of 10 years, and it's available to municipalities and First Nations who are looking to protect their critical infrastructure and mitigate public safety hazards. And an average about $50 million or $53 million is available during each fiscal year. So ACRP, or the Alberta Community Resilience Program, is a cost-shared program with Alberta Environment and Parks funding up to 90% of eligible costs up to the first $3 million, and then 70% of costs that exceed $3 million. So while we're looking, and the cost share is an intentional measure through the program. So the point of the cost share is to promote the concept of shared accountability, that both the provinces and the municipalities are partners in finding solutions, and then also to reiterate that municipalities own part of their solutions to flood risk management. And then this also, we believe that the cost share will encourage municipalities to be deliberate when they propose their projects for funding. So we're hoping that they'll be more likely to consider land use management or other non-structural measures when faced with the additional costs of expensive engineering solutions. And so while we're looking to protect the critical infrastructure, we also have additional program outcomes that we're looking to support, including ecosystem and waterway restoration, so making sure berms or flood walls are built with appropriate setbacks, looking to enhance water quality where possible, as well as fish habitat, for example. We're looking to support sustainable stormwater management and allow the natural systems to help attenuate flood and storm flows. And acquisition and relocation of infrastructure and property is possible under ACRP. So any buyouts facilitated under this program, the site would be returned to a naturalized state. It would be designated as an environmental reserve in an effort to limit potential future redevelopment. So we recognize that community resilience requires a holistic approach. So we've asked each municipality who submits an application under this program to also submit what we've called the Resilience and Mitigation Assessment. And this comes in 4 parts. And the purpose of this is to allow the municipality and us to help gauge their commitment to local flood mitigation. So the municipality is able to provide us with information about the risks and hazards that they face in their area, as well as complementary actions that they're undertaking to reduce risks and vulnerabilities. So those could include land use management, development bylaws, intermunicipal planning, or regional planning initiatives. And then with the watershed assessment component of this, we're looking just to make sure that we're looking at the watershed as a whole. So we want to take a no adverse impacts approach to project funding. So if a municipality is pushing the issues downstream, the issue hasn't really been solved. So we want to make sure that they're taking into consideration their upstream and downstream neighbors, as well as water quality and potential habitat destruction. So just a couple of facts about the Alberta Community Resilience Program. So to date, we have approved $165 million worth of grants for 65 projects province-wide. And these are addressing a range of issues, including erosion, stormwater management, and critical infrastructure protection. And the grants have been issued and span a range of values from $175,000 to $11.5 million. And projects include the relocation of raw water intake supply lines and pump stations, and the construction of a debris dam in our Steep Mountain Creek area, as well as the relocation of a wastewater lagoon out of the floodway in one of our First Nations communities. And just an interesting note, stormwater management issues have increasingly accounted for a significant proportion of grant applications, as a number of short-duration, high-intensity events have impacted the area in recent years. And so also, in addition to the structural and the critical infrastructure piece, the province has recognized the role that our natural systems can play in flood and drought mitigation. So the Watershed Resiliency and Restoration Program was also announced in 2014. And the program aims to restore, enhance degraded or drained wetlands, riparian areas, and encourage wetland stewardship, and also provide data, tools, and information to support decision making, such as policy and land use management. And so I just wanted to include this slide just to really demonstrate the value of the naturalized solutions. So this is an image from the city of Calgary, and following flooding on the Bow River in 2005, you can see on the left, the planted living crib wall actually remained intact and is shown to be more resilient than the hard armored riprap solution beside it, which eroded and then further eroded the bank after it was washed away. And so some ongoing work that's occurring provincially includes additional flood hazard mapping. So some forthcoming studies will include flood hazard mapping on about 500 kilometers of riverway in Alberta. We're exploring additional policy development tools such as restricting land use or restricting development in hazardous areas and improving communication tools. So the Alberta Rivers app was released in 2014 and is a source for emergency managers and the public about real-time conditions on our rivers, and it also pushes notifications from the river forecast section. And so my name is Allison Roberts, and you're welcome. I think I've used up all my time, so you're welcome to approach me with any questions that you might have. And I've also included some links to our ACRP and WRRP programs for more information. Thank you.